Let's jump into chapter 1. I have lived in 42 homes in 7 different states. I'm still not sure where I belong or who I belong to. Is it nowhere and no one, or everywhere and everyone? There are days when I turn the lights off, close the curtains against the sunshine, and know with certainty that there is only a deep darkness that will engulf us all. Then I have days so bright and so long that it feels like Alaska in the summertime. Everything is so vibrant and beautiful that I can't remember the dull ache of nothingness. How are these two sides so clever at making me forget life with the other? For a long time, I avoid thinking about my past because I would not remember. The early years blurred against my closed eyelids. The people I traveled with remained faceless. I did have one faint memory that tugged at me, and that when I tugged it back, it began to quickly unravel. I was in middle school. My mom used to tell me that I was adopted, so she didn't have any baby pictures of me. I felt like she was lying, but I wasn't sure why she would do that. She always had a slight twist of the lips when she told me, but only she knew the punchline. I rolled my eyes at her response, not quite understanding how cruel she was being. I tried to play her game and act like I was in on her secret joke. I knew there were photo albums somewhere. I had seen glimpses of them, even though they seemed to move in the middle of the night those times I tried to find them. In high school, after I moved out, I asked my mom for a baby picture of myself for my senior yearbook page. One cannot underestimate the need to fit in as a teenager. It was an emotionally dangerous mission, but I was determined. I went over to her place, and after a tense negotiation, she agreed to give some to me. If I went on birth control, I could have my baby pictures. These were her terms, and I agreed, even though I was still a virgin. To ask for something from her meant that I would have to sacrifice something important to me, the stakes getting higher with each step I took away from her, with each inch of control she thought she lost over me. My mom would make an appointment within days, and I would go. It never occurred to me that she wouldn't know whether I took the pills or not. By this time, I was conditioned to not even consider risking it. With the deal made, she pointed me to a corner in the house, and I spotted an album under a pile of books. Feeling vindicated that it existed, I quickly left her house with it tucked under my arm. This would be the first time that I would see pictures of my young parents, of me from all those years ago. After selecting a baby picture for the yearbook, I put the albums away for a long time, but I eventually allowed myself to look at those yellowing Polaroids, maybe once or twice a year, around the holidays or my birthday, the faces of my parents becoming blurry as I strained my eyes trying to recognize them, as I blinked back unwanted tears. I'd grab a whiskey bottle and will them to come to life and speak to me. A few swigs later, I'd plead, "Who are you?" and impatiently wait for an answer. Other times, I'd draft separate emails to each parent. "I'm just writing to remind you that you have a daughter," or "I'm sorry," or "I hate you and hope you can't sleep at night." I'd wake up the next morning unsure if I sent the emails, feeling a pit in my stomach if I saw a reply from them, and feeling rejected if I didn't. Those moments, those moods would paralyze me for days, so I try to focus only on the present. I tried to pretend like the past wasn't chasing me night and day, relentlessly following me into my dreams and giving me anxiety the moment I woke up. My heart crashed against my rib cage before my eyes even had the chance to open. I've always been able to hide this side of me, leaning on routine and OCD behavior to create a sense of normalcy in my day-to-day. I knew enough to fit in and to get me through, but I only had basic coping mechanisms. And as I grew older, I had to find other modes of survival. The most constructive was to be a workaholic, the worst an inspiring alcoholic. If you met me then, you would say I was kind, funny, and engaging. You'd want to hang out with me and be in my orbit. You would think I was smart, confident, and ambitious. No matter your preference, you would find me sexy. If I was drinking whiskey, you would laugh at my jokes, yet feel stung when they were about you. But you would still call me, still love me. My life sat upon a shaking, balancing scale. I was the shifting of grains going from one pile to the other. I went back and forth, everything to nothing, endlessly it seemed. I was exhausted. My 35th birthday was approaching and a profound sadness settled over me. I had a vague understanding of my need for self-medication, my insatiable desire to be loved, and the dull response towards those who tried to give it to me. I was barely keeping my head above water. I barely felt joy anymore. Everything happens for a reason, and the depths of this dark time, an opportunity with work came up with work for me to transfer to San Francisco. After building the life in the Washington, D.C. area for 20 years, excluding a short exodus to North Carolina in my mid-20s, it seemed to be an option I would never consider. D.C. was my home where I had worked hard to plant roots after a volatile childhood. I had the best of friends, the best times of my life there, but somehow it felt necessary, so I went. I knew it'd be hard moving away from home, but I didn't understand just how alien the change would feel. In California, I felt lost in the moments between work and sleep. Time stretched like putty. I was sober more often because I didn't like to drink alone, and I was alone because I didn't know many people. The space around me suddenly seemed vast. I wasn't crowded by other happy hour patrons or squeezed onto a couch with friends. I wasn't taking in everyone else's daily detailed account of their lives. In the calm, I started to unpack the thoughts of my head, carefully placing and organizing them around me. A few memories multiplied into hundreds, each detail like a stitch sewing me back together. The end of chapter 1. So what I want to say about this chapter, when I was writing all these different memories and thinking about how I wanted to approach writing my book, because it's not just a book, it's a story of my life, and it's a series of experiences and things that have happened to me. Well, first let me do this. Let me show the albums, because this is the memory that I used when I started going through my stuff. I pretty much, like I was showing in my intro video, just spread everything out around me, and these popped up because these are the only albums. So I have this one album that has pictures. I won't go through them necessarily right here, but I'll do some blogs and post some stuff later. But these are pictures of me when I was little and places that I'd visited, like the zoo, and my mom when she was at the Coast Guard, and it was our house in Ohio where I was born, on the property actually. So going through this, there's a few pictures of my sister and my dad, my grandma, some of my cousins. There's only one picture, a couple pictures of my mom in here. So I have that one. This is when we were living in Ohio in the younger years. And then there's the other album that picks up later. We'll get into this story. You'll see why. But this ends about, when I'm about 8 years old, 7 or 8. And then this picks up, this one right here, when I'm about 9 years old. And so there's pictures in here when my stepdad came into the picture. And so what I just did was I felt like that was an important place for me to start, because I feel like with that memory and introducing my book, it told the story of, I wanted to set the stage of the tension with my mom and I, and also a bit of my bravery. I wanted to set the stage of the importance of having just this proof, that I was a kid and I existed and that I was a part of her. And I did have an impact, maybe. That's still to be determined, but that's why I started with this story. So I just wanted to introduce myself. And then when I was looking at how I wanted to write my book, that's why I then introduced and segued into my move to California, because basically what happened was I was living in DC. I owned a condo, and that's where I built my life. And something came up with the company I was at, and they needed somebody in San Francisco. I'd never been to San Francisco. And I was very much a creature of habit. You can ask people I know, like I didn't even want to go outside of the radius of where I lived. I mean, provided there were really cool like bars and restaurants and music venues and stuff, so people weren't too upset, but I was definitely a creature of habit. So when I made this decision to say yes to moving somewhere that I had never even been, the fact that I was in that place, I knew deep in my heart I really wanted to write my book. I needed to do this. And it wasn't just because I wanted to go sell a million copies. I mean, I've sold a good amount, but I haven't been picked up by a publisher. I haven't done any marketing really. And I needed to do this for myself. So in order to give myself that space away from my crazy, busy, fun life, I needed to be somewhere else. And so I made the commitment. I went to California actually over my birthday, found an apartment, came back, packed all my stuff. Well, actually, my company packed it up, but still, I had to do a lot. And then got my dog and I, Charlie, together, and we moved to California a few weeks later to San Francisco. So it was a big, bold move. It was pretty crazy. I'm not saying that if you're looking to write your book, you need to do something big and bold, like uproot your life. But I do think if you have something inside of you that feels so strongly, for me, it wasn't a choice. I needed to do this as much as I need to breathe air or drink water or eat food or laugh or cry. It was a part of who I am, and I was not going to be able to survive if I could not get this book out of me and out into the world. So if you need to find a space, I would say that is going to be your number one biggest hurdle, is giving yourself the space and the opportunity to quiet your mind, to focus on yourself, and to really engage in this process. So number one, yes, go do all the things like how do I structure and blah, that's all important. Great. But is your desire to do this stronger than anything else? I mean, do you need to get this out there? Figure that out. And if that's the case, I would make a list of what you think would be able to give you that opportunity to do it. Okay, I'll see you for the next chapter.